everybody, and welcome to Cooking with Francois. Today I'm going to do ribs, and I'm going to do two different types of ribs. I've got a slab of spare ribs and one of back ribs. Sort of getting ready for Memorial Day, maybe, if that's what you like to do. Even though it's very important to remember why we're actually having Memorial Day. First thing I'm going to do though is make some barbecue sauce, and this is the barbecue sauce that I grew up with. We had a gentleman in my hometown, his name was Clarence Parks, and every Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day, he would barbecue. He had a huge pit behind his house that he would barbecue in, and he basically would get the coals going and then lay the chicken wire down and put the big Boston butts or whatever type of meat he was barbecuing, and then he would cover it with roofing tin. I know this sounds weird, but that's how he would cook them. And he would take the tin off and he would just reach with his hands and feel them to see if they were done or not. I don't know how he did it, but this is his barbecue sauce, so it's the one I grew up with. You start with 1/4 of a stick of, and this tells you how old the recipe is, oleo, but you can use butter or margarine, and I'm melting it now in my pot, and I'm going to start doing the other ingredients. I need 1/2 cup of yellow mustard. Because when we finish our ribs in the pressure cooker, we're not going to have, there's going to have a dry rub on it. So we're going to then put them under the broiler after we mop some sauce on it. So 1/2 cup of mustard. In there with the melting butter. And then we need 3/4 a cup of Worcestershire sauce. So I'm going to use that same 1/2 cup measure. There's 1/2 cup of Worcestershire. And now 1/4 of a cup, making our 3/4. And 1/2 cup of vinegar. Plain old distilled vinegar. I guess you could use apple cider vinegar. That would be fine too. But none of that fancy stuff that has flavorings and stuff in it. Just plain old good old vinegar. And now 2 cups of ketchup. One. "16 ounces, basically a pint of ketchup is what we're supposed to use. This bottle has 20 ounces in it, which is why I'm measuring it. Plus somebody here wants to use some of the ketchup to make their own sauce. I guess they don't think mine's going to be any good. So alrighty. And our ketchup. So far we have vinegar, ketchup, mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and our butter or oleo. Now we're going to add some spices, but let me give that a little bit of a stir here. Mr. Clarence's son and my dad grew up together. They were real good friends. We ran a drugstore, and Mr. Clarence's son had a bicycle and my dad didn't, so he would put my dad on the handlebars and they would deliver ice cream around town because we did have a soda fountain. All right, some spices now that we're going to add. We're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of black pepper. One. Don't forget, I was making sausage with a guy back home, and he said, now we can't forget to put the black pepper in because that's where a lot of the heat comes from. I said, it doesn't come from the red pepper? He said, no. I said, okay. Whatever you say, sir. And we're putting in 3/4 of a teaspoon of red pepper, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And we're going to let that simmer for a little while. But what's neat is I'm looking in a cookbook that my church did, but they didn't put one of his secrets to his sauce, other than letting it simmer for a little while. He would put lemon slices in it, like this, and then just let it simmer. And we're going to let that simmer. I'm probably going to move this to a different outlet so that we can begin working on our ribs. So, I'll be right back. All right, everybody. These ribs that we're getting ready to cook have a dry rub on them. So we're not going to put sauce on them while we cook them. Once we're finished cooking them in the pressure cooker, we're going to take them out, put them on a sheet pan, and run them under the broiler with our sauce on it. Look at this neat thing I got at a estate sale. People said, oh look, it's a butter churn. Well, actually, it's a barbecue mop. So you can mop your barbecue sauce onto your ribs. So, we're going to put the sauce in once we get there. But we've got to make our rub first. So, into our rub goes 1 tablespoon of black pepper. Tablespoon. Brown sugar. One and a half tablespoons of brown sugar. That looks good. You know me, sometimes I measure with my eyeballs. All right, 1.5 teaspoons of celery salt. So there's 1 teaspoon. 1.5. All right, of celery salt. 1 teaspoon of red pepper. One and a half teaspoons of garlic powder. One and a half teaspoons cumin. That was the half, so let me get the one now. Did it backwards, but hey, doesn't matter. No. All right. And then 1/4 of a cup. Let's see if I can find it. There we go. 1/4 of a cup of paprika. All right. We're going to stir this all up, get it all mixed together, and then we're going to rub our ribs down with them. But we've got to do something else before we do that. So I'll be back in a minute to show you the next step. All right, our next step. I have peeled that membrane off the back of the ribs. I didn't think you needed to watch me do that, but there's a thin membrane on the back of the ribs. So now what we're going to do is we're going to liberally dust it with our rub. Both sides. This is looking good. Then what we're going to do is we are going to put 1/2 cup of water into our pressure cooker. For the back ribs, back loin ribs, we are going to cook them for 15 minutes, and then the spare ribs, we are going to cook for 20 minutes. So I'm going to have 2 pots going. So I'm going to put 1/2 cup of water into my cooker. It already has its rack in it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take them and curl them like so. Put the lid on, and since those were the baby back ribs, the back ribs, we're going to cook those for 15 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and get both of them going, and then I will be back to get ready for the next step. This is a very easy recipe. It's just a lot of mixing up going on. So, be back. All right, we got 2 pots of ribs. So, this one has been resting for 10 minutes on its own. Now we're going to release the pressure, and I'm going to move it once I do that. But look at there, pressure's already released. Oh, don't those look nice? Okay, we're going to take them. They're already falling off the bone. And we are going to put them on our baking sheet like this. Get this out of the way. And I've got my barbecue sauce in the little pot. I'm going to move the camera and zoom in a little bit. To give you an idea how tender they are, I mean, there's a bone. All right, let us slather some barbecue sauce on it. This is called a mop. Mopping these real good here. Mop the sides too. All right, now I'm going to flip them over. More. And we're going to do the same thing with our other ribs. And we're going to take them and we are going to put them under the broiler in the oven and get them good and caramelized. And then I'll show you what they look like before I cut them up and we eat them. So, I'll be back in a few minutes with the finished product. Well, here we go. These are the baby back. Look at them. Just falling apart. And then these are the... This is the spare rib. I don't know what I'm going to hold on to. I was always taught, and it said that Emily Post said, anything that has a handle, you can pick up with your fingers. Never forget when I saw somebody trying to eat ribs with a knife and fork. Hold on, let me zoom the camera back out. And now you can watch me take a bite. Tender is not the word. I mean, this meat is just coming off the bones. Finger licking good. So, until next time, let's dig in.